The sun was setting behind the hills when a stranger walked into the town. His steps were slow, his clothes dusty, and his backpack looked as if it had survived 100 storms. People sitting at the tea stalls turned their heads, curious at first, and then laughter slowly filled the air. "Look at him," one man whispered loudly enough for others to hear. "His bag is torn, his shoes are broken. Maybe he is just a beggar pretending to be a traveler." Children ran after him, giggling, pointing at his old hat. Some women shook their heads, whispering that the town didn't need another poor wanderer. Everywhere he went, eyes followed him, not with kindness, but with mockery. Yet the backpacker did not react. His face was calm, almost too calm for someone being insulted. He kept walking, his eyes fixed ahead, as if he was searching for something no one else could see. The stranger stopped near a water pump and drank. His hands were rough, his skin sunburnt from long journeys. But when a boy accidentally dropped a bucket beside him, the backpacker bent down, picked it up, and smiled gently. The boy froze, confused. The man who looked so poor, so weak, carried a strange kind of strength in his smile. "Why does he not get angry?" another man asked. "If people laugh at me like this, I would shout back. But he stays silent." Silence was indeed his answer. He did not defend himself, nor did he try to explain who he was. To the crowd, he was just a poor traveler. But deep inside, he carried a secret no one in the town could even imagine. As night came closer, he tried to find a place to rest. He asked a shopkeeper if there was any inn nearby. The shopkeeper laughed. "An inn? With what money, traveler? You don't even have proper shoes. Go sleep on the street, it will suit you better." The crowd laughed again. The backpacker only nodded and moved away. Not a single word came from his mouth. But his silence felt heavier than any speech. Finally, he sat near the steps of an old temple. He placed his bag beside him, rested his head against the stone wall, and looked up at the sky. Stars slowly appeared, one after another, shining bright. For the first time that day, his lips curved into a faint smile, as if the stars were his only friends. From a distance, a young girl watched him. She had seen how people treated him, and something inside her didn't feel right. Why did this man not defend himself? Why did he seem so calm? She wanted to ask, but fear kept her quiet. Instead, she kept watching. The backpacker pulled out a small cloth from his bag. Inside was a piece of bread, old and hard. He broke it carefully, as if it was treasure, and began to eat. Suddenly, a stray dog came near him, hungry and weak. The man looked at his bread, then at the dog. Slowly, he placed half of his food on the ground. The dog wagged its tail and ate happily. The girl gasped. This man, who had nothing, still shared what little he had. Who was he really? The townspeople had all gone home, their laughter now silent in the dark. But the girl stayed near the temple, hiding behind a tree. She watched as the backpacker took out a small notebook, its cover scratched and old. He opened it carefully and wrote something. The moonlight touched the page, and she saw his handwriting, clean, strong, almost royal. Her eyes widened. He didn't look like any ordinary traveler. His eyes carried wisdom, his smile carried kindness, and his silence carried mystery. The girl whispered to herself, "He is not what he looks like." And as the night grew deeper, the backpacker closed his eyes, resting against the cold stone. He was just a poor traveler in the eyes of the town. But soon, they would discover the truth. A truth that would shock them all. Because this was not just a wanderer. This was someone far greater, someone whose identity was hidden beneath dust and torn clothes. And tomorrow, the first signs of his secret would begin to appear. The next morning, the town woke up early. Shops opened, carts rolled into the streets, and children rushed to school. Among them, the backpacker quietly stood up from the temple steps. His body ached from the cold stone floor, but he did not complain. He dusted his old clothes, lifted his bag, and started walking. His first stop was a bakery. The smell of fresh bread made his stomach growl. He had not eaten properly in days. Gathering his courage, he asked the shopkeeper, "Sir, do you need any help? I can clean, I can lift sacks, I can work for food." The baker looked at him from head to toe and laughed. "You work here? My customers will run away if they see you." Look at your shoes, your torn bag. Go beg somewhere else. The people standing in the bakery chuckled. Some shook their heads in pity, but no one offered help. The backpacker bowed his head slightly, thanked the baker, and walked away. At the marketplace, he tried again. He offered to carry heavy baskets for a fruit seller. The man stared at him for a moment, then pushed him aside. I don't trust strangers, he said. Go away. Everywhere he went, doors were closed to him. He was not given work, not given food, not given respect. Children followed him, chanting, Poor man! Poor man! Their voices stung, but he stayed silent. By noon, the sun burned hot above his head. His throat was dry, his stomach empty. Yet when he saw an old woman struggling to carry a bucket of water, he rushed forward. Let me help you, mother, he said softly. The woman hesitated. Her neighbors had warned her not to talk to strangers. But when she looked into his eyes, she saw no danger, only kindness. Slowly, she nodded. The backpacker lifted the heavy bucket and carried it all the way to her small hut. She thanked him with folded hands, but she too had nothing to offer in return. He smiled and walked away, never asking for anything. But whispers started spreading in the town. Some people noticed his behavior. He does not get angry. He helps without asking for reward. Who is he really? One man said. Still, most continued to laugh. That evening, the backpacker sat under a tree. He had no shelter, no food, no work. He opened his bag and took out his small notebook again. His hands moved smoothly, writing on the old pages. The girl from the temple, the same one who had watched him the night before, appeared again. She stood at a distance, hidden behind a wall, curious about the mysterious traveler. This time, she heard him whisper as he wrote. Life tests us not with hunger, but with how we act when we are hungry. Life tests us not with pain, but with how we treat others in pain. The girl's heart skipped a beat. These were not the words of an ordinary wanderer. Soon, a group of young boys noticed him writing. They ran over and snatched the notebook. What's this? A beggar pretending to be a writer. They laughed and flipped through the pages. But their laughter quickly faded. The handwriting was not just neat, it was elegant, powerful, like something written by a scholar or a royal. They could not even understand some of the words. Embarrassed, the boys threw the notebook back at him. You're strange, one muttered, before running away. The backpacker calmly picked it up, dusted it, and placed it back inside his bag. His silence only deepened the mystery. That night, once again, he shared his small meal with the stray dog. The same girl watched, her eyes filled with questions. She wanted to approach him, but fear held her back. What if he was hiding something dangerous? And yet, something told her he was different. The next morning, the backpacker went to the river to wash his face. A few villagers were already there. When they saw him, they whispered, "Why is he here? He does not belong." But one old man, with a long beard and sharp eyes, watched carefully. He spoke slowly, almost to himself. I have seen many travelers. But this one carries silence like a king carries a crown. The villagers laughed at the old man's words. A king. Look at his torn shoes. But the old man did not laugh. His eyes stayed fixed on the mysterious stranger. And so, the backpacker's struggles continued. Hungry, mocked, unwanted, yet never angry, never broken. He lived in silence, carrying a secret no one in the town could guess. But soon, his true self would begin to shine. And the same people who laughed at him would not be laughing for long. The third day of the backpacker's stay in the town began just like the others, people mocking, shopkeepers refusing, and laughter chasing him wherever he went. But destiny had quietly prepared something different for this day. In the busy market square, a little boy stood crying near a bread shop. His clothes were torn, his face pale, and his eyes full of hunger. He had only a few coins in his hand, too few to buy even one piece of bread. The baker pushed him away. Go home, child. Come back when you have enough money. The boy's small hands trembled. He pressed the coins tightly to his chest and turned around with tears rolling down his cheeks. From the other side of the market, the backpacker watched. His own stomach was empty, his pockets completely dry. Yet when he saw the boy, he could not just stand still. Slowly, he walked to the baker. "I have nothing much," the backpacker said, pulling out the last coin he had saved. He placed it beside the boy's coins. "Together, it should be enough." The baker stared, surprised. "You? Giving him money?" The people nearby stopped and watched. A man who had no food for himself was giving away his last coin for a hungry child. The baker hesitated, then sighed. He handed over a small loaf of bread. The boy looked at it with shining eyes. Before he could thank anyone, the backpacker broke the bread into 2 pieces. One he gave to the boy, the other he kept for himself. The boy hugged him tightly, whispering, "Thank you, brother." The crowd went silent. For the first time, the laughter around the backpacker disappeared. No one expected kindness from someone who looked so poor. But not everyone stayed quiet. A few men chuckled bitterly. "Foolish traveler," they said. "He doesn't even know how to save for himself." The backpacker only smiled, as if their words had no weight. He walked to the shade of a tree and shared his half of the bread with the same stray dog that followed him every night. The young girl, the one who had been secretly watching him since the first night, saw everything. Her heart felt heavy. This man had no money, no shelter, and still he gave away what little he had. Who was he? Why was he so different? Later that evening, the boy returned. He carried a clay cup filled with milk. "My mother asked me to give you this," he said shyly. "She said a man like you should not go hungry." The backpacker accepted it with a gentle smile. He bowed his head as if the cup was a priceless gift. He drank slowly, savoring every drop, his eyes full of gratitude. From across the street, whispers began again. Some people shook their heads. "Strange man," they said. "He lives like a beggar but behaves like a saint." One man muttered, "I feel like we are mocking someone greater than we understand." But most still laughed. That night, when the market grew silent, the backpacker sat near the temple steps once again. The girl finally gathered courage. She walked closer, holding her breath. Why did you give your money to that boy?" she asked softly. The backpacker lifted his head. His calm eyes met hers. For a long moment, he said nothing. Then he replied in a gentle voice. "When a person has nothing, he learns the true value of giving. Hunger hurts less when you feed someone else first." The girl's eyes filled with tears. She had never heard words like that before. But before she could ask more, the backpacker closed his notebook, stood up, and walked into the night. His silence left her full of questions, her heart restless. The town slept peacefully, unaware that a stranger among them carried not just a bag of torn clothes, but a soul filled with hidden strength. And while most laughed at him, one girl and one old man had begun to sense the truth. This was not just a poor backpacker. This was someone different, someone whose real story was waiting to unfold. And soon, the entire town would see the first glimpse of his hidden identity. The town square was as noisy as ever. Merchants shouted prices, children played, and the same whispers about the poor backpacker floated around. Some called him the beggar traveler, others laughed whenever he passed. But little did they know, the man they mocked was about to show something that would leave them silent. That afternoon, the backpacker sat beneath a banyan tree, his bag resting beside him. He opened it carefully and took out his old notebook. Its cover was scratched, its pages yellow, but to him, it was more precious than gold. He flipped through the pages and began to write. His hand moved quickly, gracefully, as if every letter had a life of its own. The words formed beautifully, like strokes of art, not the clumsy handwriting of a poor man. The young girl, who had been watching him secretly for days, was nearby again. She hid behind a fruit cart, her eyes fixed on the notebook. This time, she noticed something different. The way he wrote reminded her of the calligraphy she had once seen in the palace library. Could it be a coincidence? As the backpacker wrote, he softly hummed a tune. The melody floated through the market like a gentle breeze. The shopkeepers paused. Children stopped playing. Even the stray dog lay down quietly, listening. His voice was soft but deep, carrying both sadness and strength. The girl whispered to herself, "This is not the voice of a beggar." But the peace did not last long. A group of young men, the same ones who had mocked him before, came forward. One of them grabbed the notebook and waved it in the air. "Look at this. Our beggar thinks he's a poet now." The crowd laughed again. But when the young man opened the notebook, his smile faded. The handwriting was royal, polished, almost too perfect. The words were not simple, they carried wisdom, depth, and beauty. The young man's hands shook. He quickly shut the notebook and shoved it back at the backpacker, embarrassed. The backpacker did not scold them. He simply smiled, bowed his head slightly, and continued writing as if nothing had happened. His calmness only added to the mystery. Later that evening, as the marketplace grew quiet, the old bearded man, the same one who had been observing him since the river, approached. He watched the traveler write under the fading light. After a while, he spoke softly. "Your hands, they are not hands of a laborer. And your words, they are not of a poor man. Who are you, traveler?" The backpacker looked at the old man, then at the sky. After a long silence, he replied only with a smile. "No words." The old man nodded slowly, as if he already knew the answer but chose not to say it aloud. That night, something unexpected happened. A storm rolled over the town. Rain poured heavily, and the wind howled through the narrow streets. People rushed indoors, shutting their doors and windows. But the backpacker, with no shelter, sat beneath the temple roof, hugging his bag tightly to protect it from the rain. The young girl, from her window, saw him shivering in the cold. She wanted to run outside and help, but her family stopped her. "Stay inside, child. He is just a poor wanderer. He will survive." But her heart didn't agree. She stayed awake, watching through the rain-streaked window as the backpacker quietly pulled out a pencil and began sketching on the damp pages of his notebook. When the storm ended and the morning sun rose, the girl sneaked out to the temple steps. The backpacker was asleep, the notebook lying open beside him. She peeked at the pages, and gasped. On the paper was a perfect sketch of the town square, drawn with such detail that it looked alive. The shops, the fountain, the banyan tree, everything was captured beautifully. She touched the page with trembling fingers. "This is not just talent, this is mastery," she whispered. Before she could see more, the backpacker woke up. He gently closed the notebook and looked at her. For the first time, he spoke directly to her. "Sometimes, people see only the dust on clothes, not the light in hands," he said softly. The girl froze. His words were simple, but they carried a hidden weight, like a secret waiting to be revealed. She wanted to ask, "Who are you? Why are you here?" But before she could, he stood, lifted his bag, and walked away toward the riverbank, disappearing into the morning crowd. The girl's heart pounded. She knew now that this man was no ordinary traveler. He carried a gift, words, art, music, talents far beyond what his poor appearance showed. And soon, the entire town would discover the truth. But the question still burned in her mind: if he was not just a poor backpacker, then who was he really? The town had almost grown used to the strange backpacker. Some still laughed at him, others ignored him, but whispers were spreading. His silence, his kindness, his beautiful writing, and his drawings were not ordinary. The young girl had begun to follow him secretly each day, her curiosity burning stronger. The old man too kept watching, waiting. Then one morning, something happened that no one expected. A group of carriages rolled into the town. They were elegant, guarded by men on horseback. Their clothes were fine, their weapons polished. The townspeople rushed to the square, wondering why such important visitors had come. From the first carriage stepped a tall man in a velvet coat. His face was stern, his eyes sharp. The people whispered, "He looks like a noble. What is he doing in our poor town?" The nobleman raised his hand and his voice rang out, "We are searching for someone. A man who has been traveling alone, carrying only a backpack. Have you seen him?" The crowd fell silent. Then someone chuckled and pointed. "Do you mean that beggar traveler?" All eyes turned toward the temple steps. The backpacker was sitting there, his bag beside him, calmly watching the scene. The nobleman's eyes widened. He hurried forward, followed by his guards. The townspeople watched in shock as the nobleman bent down and bowed before the poor traveler. "Sir," he said with deep respect, "we have been searching for you everywhere. Your family awaits you. Your kingdom awaits you." Gasps filled the square. The people could not believe what they were hearing. This poor wanderer, from a kingdom? The backpacker slowly stood up. His eyes moved over the crowd, those who had laughed, those who had mocked, those who had refused him food. He did not look angry, only calm, as always. The young girl's mouth dropped open. Her heart raced. The old man, who had guessed the truth, nodded silently, tears in his eyes. One of the guards stepped forward and spread out a cloth embroidered with gold. On it lay a royal crest, the symbol of the traveler's true identity. Whispers turned into shouts. He is not a beggar. He is from the royal family. We mocked a prince. The baker, who had refused him bread, turned pale. The fruit seller, who had pushed him away, looked down in shame. Children who had teased him now hid behind their mothers. The nobleman spoke again, "Your Highness, forgive us for the delay. The kingdom feared for you. You left suddenly, without telling anyone. The people thought you were lost." Finally, the backpacker spoke clearly for everyone to hear. His voice was steady, filled with quiet strength. "I was not lost," he said. "I was searching." The people leaned closer, listening with trembling hearts. "I left behind comfort and wealth to see the world as it truly is. I wanted to know how people treat a man with nothing. I wanted to know if kindness still lives in human hearts." The townspeople lowered their heads. They remembered how they had laughed, mocked, and rejected him. Only the little boy, the old man, and the young girl had shown curiosity or warmth. The backpacker looked around, his calm eyes touching each face. "Now I know the truth," he continued. "Clothes may be torn, shoes may be broken, but respect should never depend on appearance." The words cut deep into every heart. Some began to cry silently. Others hid their faces in shame. The young girl, however, felt tears of a different kind. She had believed from the start that he was different. Now she knew she had been right. The nobleman stepped forward again. "Your Highness, let us return. The palace is waiting." But the backpacker raised his hand. "Not yet. These people need to learn something before I go." He turned once more to the crowd. "The one you mocked yesterday may be the one who saves you tomorrow. Remember this before you laugh at another soul." Silence fell across the square. No one dared to speak. Even the wind seemed to pause. The backpacker lifted his bag, placed it on his shoulder, and began walking slowly through the marketplace. This time, no one laughed. No one pointed. Instead, they stepped aside, bowing their heads in respect. The same man they had called beggar was now seen as their teacher, their reminder, their hidden prince. The young girl whispered, her voice trembling, "The world will never forget this day." And she was right. The truth had been revealed, and nothing in that town would ever be the same again. The town was still in shock. Just yesterday, the people had laughed at the backpacker, mocked his torn clothes, and rejected his requests for work. And now, the truth had been revealed. He was not just a poor traveler. He was the hidden prince, a man of wealth and power who had chosen to walk among them in disguise. The people gathered in the square, waiting nervously. Some trembled with guilt, others wiped tears of regret from their faces. The baker, the fruit seller, and many others who had insulted him stood in silence, unable to meet his eyes. The backpacker, now revealed as the prince, stood calmly before them. His posture was humble, not proud. His eyes carried no anger, only wisdom. Finally, he spoke. His voice was soft but carried across the square like a river flowing through silence. "All of you judged me by my clothes, my shoes, my bag. You laughed because I looked poor. You rejected me because I seemed weak. But what you saw was only the outside. You never tried to see the inside." The crowd lowered their heads. Shame burned in their hearts. The prince continued, "When I had nothing, very few of you showed kindness. But those who did, like the little boy who shared his milk, like the girl who believed in me, like the old man who saw through the dust, those hearts shine brighter than gold." The boy stood proudly beside his mother. The girl's eyes glistened with tears. The old man bowed his head, his lips whispering prayers of gratitude. The prince's words grew stronger. "Remember this, respect should not depend on wealth, on clothes, or on power. A true heart can belong to anyone, rich or poor, young or old. The stranger you laugh at today may be the one you need tomorrow. The townspeople nodded, their eyes wet with regret. Some whispered apologies, others fell to their knees. But the prince lifted his hand gently. "I forgive you," he said. "Not because you deserve it, but because forgiveness teaches more than punishment." A silence spread, heavy yet peaceful. It was as if every soul in the town was touched by those words. The nobleman who had come with the carriages stepped forward. "Your Highness, the palace awaits. Your family awaits. Shall we leave now?" The prince looked at the streets of the town, the shops, the fountain, the temple steps where he had slept, the tree where he had shared his bread with the stray dog. Every corner held a memory of struggle, of silence, of lessons learned. He nodded slowly. "Yes, it is time." But before stepping into the carriage, he turned back one last time. His final words echoed like a promise, like a warning. "Do not laugh at the poor. Do not mock the weak. For greatness often hides in the simplest clothes. And when you see a traveler with dust on his shoes, remember me." With that, he stepped into the carriage. The horses pulled forward, and the royal guards followed. The town watched in silence, their hearts heavy but awakened. The little boy waved until the carriage disappeared. The old man smiled through his tears. And the young girl whispered softly, "The world will never be the same after meeting him." From that day on, the people of the town changed. They treated strangers with respect, helped the poor, and welcomed travelers with kindness. The laughter that once mocked now turned into warmth. And whenever someone asked about the prince, the townspeople would tell the story of the dusty backpacker who had walked among them, laughed at by all, but revealed in the end as a prince who carried not just wealth, but wisdom. The story spread far beyond the town. Travelers carried it from village to village, city to city. And soon, it became a lesson for everyone. Respect all, for you never know who stands before you. And so the backpacker's journey ended, but his lesson lived on, etched not in gold or stone, but in the hearts of all who had once mocked him.